clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 4, printed in House Report number 112-213, offered by Mrs. Capps of California.
Pursuant to House Resolution 406, the gentlewoman from California, Mrs. Capps, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I may consume. You know, it's clear that the goal of the TRAIN Act is not simply to study EPA standards. The goal of the majority is to block the efforts of EPA to cut mercury and other toxic pollution from dirty power plants. That's dangerous, and it's misguided. The research is clear. Unless EPA enforces these standards, there will be more premature deaths, more heart and asthma attacks, more hospital and emergency room visits. Up until recently, I thought that I don't live next door to a power plant. I live near the coast of the Pacific Ocean. But I learned that you don't need to live near a dirty power plant to be exposed to its harmful effects. I received test results this summer showing that I have an unsafe level of mercury in my body. And I'm not alone. Tens of millions of American women of childbearing age and their children are at risk from mercury and other toxins that are released into our air each and every year. Every year, hundreds of thousands of babies are exposed to mercury. Mercury exposure can cause learning disabilities, developmental delays, and other developmental problems. We owe it to our children to clean up toxic mercury pollution, and that's why I'm offering this amendment. The amendment would simply require that this committee designate the analysis of the true costs of including health effects in blocking EPA's life-saving clean air safeguards. These costs are clear to mothers and grandmothers across the nation. Brain damage, developmental problems, infant deaths. Support my amendment. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
I rise in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
All of us certainly are concerned about impacts on children, and one of the problems that we have with this amendment is that when you try to determine specifically what causes a birth defect, for example, there are lots of different reasons. Folic acid is a B vitamin. Taking folic acid supplements before getting pregnant and in early pregnancy lowers the risk of having a baby with serious birth defects. Drinking alcohol increases the likelihood of serious birth defects. Smoking. Women who are obese when they get pregnant have a higher risk of having a baby with serious birth defects. Poor control of diabetes in pregnant women increases the chance of having a birth defect. So there are lots of different reasons, and it's difficult to set out a causal reason. I would say to the gentlelady from California, who we know is genuinely concerned about these health issues and has distinguished her career by raising them frequently, the EPA did extensive analysis of the health benefits of all these rules, with the exception of greenhouse gas. They didn't do any study on anything there. But so we have a lot of information about the health benefits. As far as the mercury issue, I would say to the gentlelady that the utility MAC, EPA itself, has said that this would reduce mercury by such a small amount that it would represent only 0.004% of the total claim benefits of the rule. And the remaining 99.996% would be due to particulate matter reduction. And I would also remind the gentlelady that the Department of Energy and other groups have indicated that 99% of mercury deposits in the U.S. do not come from utility companies, but they originate from nature and foreign industrial sources in which the wind brings them to the U.S. And so we believe that there's adequate information on health benefits, and furthermore, the TRAIN Act does ask the independent body to look at benefits, can be health, whatever, and cost. So for that reason, we would oppose the gentlelady's amendment.
I would like to
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from California.
thank you very much. You know, power plants are the biggest industrial source of mercury pollution in the United States, and I believe that the remarks of the chairman of the subcommittee or the chairman of the Energy Committee underscore the very reason that we should have the studies of the health effects included in the study that is requested by the TRAIN Act. And I'm pleased to yield now to my colleague from Oregon, the champion of livable cities, a minute to speak on this topic.
I appreciate the gentlelady's courtesy. I appreciate your offering this amendment. I mean, you can't, my friends on the other side of the aisle can't have it both ways. There has been a lot of study. For heaven's sakes, EPA has already estimated cost of compliance less than $1 billion, and the savings to American from lives saved, health care costs avoided, and days of work and school not missed between 120 and 280 billion. Part of the study effort that has been going on for 20 years. We had hoped that on the 25th anniversary of the Clean Air Act in 2015, we would probably have full compliance. And yet we're quibbling here about things that the EPA has been unable to monetize like a birth defect, but for heaven's sakes, it's serious in addition to the hundreds of billions that they can monetize. This is, I think, unfortunate that if this approach is approved, that it will enable the Chinese to, may I have 20 more seconds?
20 more seconds.
Will enable the Chinese to get ahead of us again. Remember, I put in the record last night the page of the Chinese Daily, where they are moving ahead to reduce emissions. They are willing to incur the costs because of the health benefits, but it's not enough for my friends on the other side of the aisle to go ahead after 25 years. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Does the gentlelady from California have any time left?
Gentlelady from California has 1 minute.
May I ask how much time is left?
The gentleman from Kentucky has 2.5. The gentleman from California has 1.
We don't have any other speakers, so I would wait for the gentlelady to close.
Well, I'm pleased that I do have another speaker, and I'm happy to yield the minute to my colleague from Florida, a mother of 3 young children, Ms. Debbie Wasserman-Schultz.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of the amendment offered by my colleague, Congresswoman Lois Capps, and in opposition to the underlying bill, the majority's latest assault on clean air and public health. I'd like to thank Congresswoman Capps and all of my colleagues who have spoken in opposition to this bill, which puts the health of all Americans, especially our children, at great risk. This amendment simply requires recognition of the very real health consequences of air pollution. For example, curbing mercury pollution will protect children and mothers from toxins that damage a developing brain. With this amendment, the required report must assess the effect on birth and developmental defects and infant mortality rates caused by the delay in better clean air standards. What's wrong with that? Who could be opposed to that? For such a small additional effort, this assessment would provide crucial information affecting the health of all American families. As a mother of 3 young children, whose health is among my absolute greatest concerns, I urge my colleagues who are parents and grandparents to take a moment and consider the impact of this bad bill. Delaying EPA's mercury and air toxic standards will have serious consequences on their children and grandchildren. Remember that we are their first line of defense in this world. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this good amendment and opposing the underlying bill. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Well, I would remind everyone just once again that we're talking about 14 regulations. We're not delaying 12 of them in any way. We're asking for further analysis of 2 of them, and for that reason I would oppose the amendment and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from California. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
I ask
and
for
the
a
amendment is
recorded
not
vote.
agreed to.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from California will be postponed.